Welcome into MJT Football. I am your host, Tony Tucker. I am joined by NFL Mike on TikTok and the Joe Morley on TikTok. And I want you to go over and follow them for tremendous, outstanding, sometimes outrageous content over there. But you are here on YouTube with us talking the NFL draft. And if you thought that the draft was crazy and maybe under-researched or wild picks or whatever, well, then you're going to fit right in on this show because we're about to give takes on stuff that we have loosely researched, but we love the game. And so let's talk about it, gentlemen. Love it. As I said, welcome into MJT Football. If it is your first time, please consider subscribing. If you're listening to this on the audio version, go on over to YouTube where you can hit the subscribe button. You can hit the notification bell and you can get into this chat. We are three friends who love talking football, but we're always looking for a fourth. And you can become a number 4 by hitting that subscribe button and joining the ridiculousness that is MJT Football. I said at the top in the little intro humor bit there, loosely researched and wild projections and thoughts, because I thought that really kind of was what this NFL draft was, guys. The more that I sat and thought with it, I think that the Lions threw everything out of whack at 6. When Devin Witherspoon got selected, they were just like, F it. We're just getting our guys. We're every person on our board. And then other teams were following suit. They were like, hey, it's the Wild West. If we really love a guy, we are just drafting him. And I think a lot of teams had amazing drafts because of the amount of chaos that was happening with other situations and teams and whatever. They just sat there and they were like, can't believe this guy's here. We'll take him. Mike, you?
Yeah, I'm with you. I feel like a lot of players fell because of those reasonings, that their teams were just taking who they had on their board, no matter what the value might have been ranked out on other teams' boards. When I look at the Lions draft and I look back at it, they really could have added Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith and still gotten a running back and a linebacker in the next couple of rounds. That part didn't really make much sense to me.
Joe?
Well, we talked about this draft like going in, and a lot of experts and everybody said expect the unexpected, and a lot of us were like, no, it's not going to happen. And then, like you said, Tony, players started going off the board. I think Arizona coming up for Paris Johnson Jr. threw a lot of stuff off too. Not to diss that move, but for Houston to make a crazy move at the beginning of the draft, draft 2 and 3. Then Arizona dropped back, so people thought, okay, more people are going to fall, and then Arizona came back up. I think it just threw a lot of things off to begin with. Plus, with everybody saying there's only 15 elite players in this draft, there's only 15. So then it makes you go, well, screw it, we're going to go our guys, and like you said, now we have a reaction video of the Detroit Lions picks right up there. If you guys haven't seen it, go check it out. Looking back at the Lions draft now, it's not as bad. But when you're watching it, you're like, and we're not dissing any players. There's no times that we're like, why did you draft that guy? He sucks. It's not that. We were looking at the position at number 12, at the pick that you're doing, who you're taking. And even Gibbs himself has come out and said, I wasn't expecting to go this high. And he did. So it's not that we're dissing the players. He's a great player. He's a good running back. But at the time, now they have traded DeAndre Swift to the Eagles. We've seen that. And at the time, they had David Montgomery, DeAndre Swift under contract. And it's like, you're taking another running back. So it was just an interesting draft all around. But I think a lot more teams had good drafts than bad drafts. Looking at it.
I just think that also there was a lot of players that slid and fell because of whatever reason. They just have high potential. And it might not work out, but if it does work out, I think in this draft, there was a lot more guys in those middle rounds that could be home runs and could be long-term starters in the NFL that some teams got, especially, we're going to talk about it a little bit later, especially like what the Steelers did and some of these other teams that got some of these steals in the middle rounds of the draft. And Lions fans have been in the comment section of those reaction videos that I posted. They're still excited, and they have a reason to be because they still know they got two good players. But the point is they did not maximize their draft picks. They kind of just picked the players that they liked and are cool with it. But they could have maximized those two inside of the top 20 picks a little better.
No doubt. I mean, I can't really. I can't, guys.
You're a Lions guy.
Out that their division didn't maximize their draft as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
yeah, the Lions, if you really look at it, like the Lions got really good players. But if you're going to trade DeAndre Swift and you're going to draft a running back, and you're looking at a running back, why aren't you just picking Bijan Robinson at 6? Like,
yeah.
This idea that it's really close between the two, like if I'm not mistaken, Jahmyr Gibbs is quite a bit smaller, right? Like, and you could have had a 210-pound running back who might be a little bit slower or whatever, but the things that he could do are very similar to Gibbs, and he could also be a guy that you could lean on for 20 carries. And then on top of it, why did you then go out and sign? Like, a lot of people were looking at the running back draft, and it's like last year they had Swift and Jamal Williams, and this year they're going to have Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. Are we sure that that's like an upgrade from what they had last year? So I'm not positive about that. And when you could have had Jalen Carter and Jahmyr Gibbs, right? Like, even if you're willing to trade or whatever, then you probably were willing to go from 18 to 12 with the tech, or whoever had that pick at that point, and go. It was very confusing to me. The Lions overall had, I think, a tremendous draft. I just want to say what's up to Aiden. First comment in here. I'm going with Aiden. I don't know what's going on there. And Harrison finishing his chores. Good for you, brother. Knock those things out. Do as you're told. Life will be a lot more successful.
I don't think Harrison's a kid, Tony. I think he's like 19 or something, right?
I don't know. I have gotten the impression that Harrison is young. I have no idea how old he is, but I would say that he's probably 18, 19 years old. And he says, just finished my chores on time. That's what he says in the chat.
I see.
There's a lot about that Detroit Lion draft that we could talk about, that we could probably do a whole half an hour to an hour show just on Detroit's draft.
Well, they drafted Laporta ahead of Michael Mayer again, where it's like they identified him as their guy, and I'm with that you getting your guy, and that's what I'm happy about. But yeah, I don't know, whatever.
Yeah, I love Jack Campbell. I think Jack Campbell is great, and I would have loved for the Raiders to draft him. Now, whatever, I took him at 18, I don't know. But then when they got Branch in the second round, it's like, okay, now you just switch it, because if they would have took Branch at 18, nobody would have said anything. But now they get Branch in the second round, it worked out for them. So that's the good thing about the Detroit Lions. But we have a couple topics we need to get to.
Yeah, that's true.
So
yeah, let's do it.
We don't want to keep these fine people waiting, Tony.
Yeah, and I forgot to put in banners on this, but I think the first topic that I would like to go to start off this show is for each of us to go around here, and we are going to talk about our favorite drafts from the class. I have my top 5, and I have an honorable mention for number 6. But I would like to go through right now, and each of us to give our favorite class or draft classes from this class. Mike, you want to start?
Yeah, I got a short list as well, Tony, but I'll let you save it because there's probably a lot of overlapping teams on your top 5 list there. But my favorite draft, and I'm going with the Indianapolis Colts still. I talked about it on one of the TikToks that I made. I just feel like they did a good job at addressing a bunch of needs later in the draft. Like, of course, they got the franchise quarterback, and that's a big deal, first of all. I thought that was the best landing spot for Anthony Richardson of the realistic landing spots, the teams that could be in the top 5 or could trade up to the top 5, because Shane Steichen is there and he knows what to do with a quarterback with a skill set similar to Anthony Richardson's. And the biggest thing that I think that they did for Jalen Hurts last year is they kind of not hid his greatest weakness, and I'm sure he's improved since his rookie year, but they were able to make it so where when he's throwing the ball, most of the time he's throwing it to a wide open Devonta Smith. He's throwing it to a wide open A.J. Brown. And I think they can do a similar thing with Michael Pittman and Josh Downs, who they got in this draft, and Alec Pierce there. And also I think that he's a good fit because those big receivers and Jelani Woods at tight end are going to also kind of cover up a little bit of the issues with Anthony Richardson. Because there's going to be a lot of situations where even if there's two guys on Jelani Woods or Michael Pittman or Alec Pierce down the field, throw that thing high and it's going to be a safe pass still. They're either going to catch it or it's likely going to be incomplete. And then I really am a big fan of the Kansas State cornerback, Julius Brents, just a big fan of him. And then the Northwestern defensive tackle that they got, I think he's a really underrated player, and he joins a room where there's a lot of good pass rushers on the inside in Indianapolis. Just overall, I think they addressed a bunch of needs, and they added a bunch of guys that can contribute this year or the year after. And even a little bit, if you really look at all their picks, I think they had 12 picks in this draft. They like picked little spots here where they added a guard and they added a tackle. And I don't know these guys. I don't know their potential. I don't know very much about them. But just seeing that they had the wherewithal, like our O-line was destroyed last year. So even if we're adding depth / taking swings on guys, this is something that we got to use our draft picks to do. I just feel like they really addressed everything they needed to in this draft with their picks. I think they even traded back once and got some extra picks. It was really good. And this team, this Colts team, just 2 years ago, won 9 games and was on the brink of wild card with Carson Wentz. So I think with a little bit of an adjustment in the offense and the threat of the read option to Jonathan Taylor and Anthony Richardson in the backfield, the Colts could turn this thing around a lot quicker than people think.
Agreed. I'll throw in a couple of notes on the Colts of players because they're gonna spoiler alert, they're making my top 5 list. They got Evan Hall, who is a running back that I just like the way he thinks and plays about football. Like if you go back to the combine, he finished every rep to the end zone. Like when he was running, doing those things, he just kept running all the reps and then running all the way back to get in the line. Like that is the kind of football player mentality that you want to have. Like somebody who's like, I might not be the best, the fastest, the strongest, the whatever, but on every time I touch the football, I'm trying to take it to the house. And like, honestly, he's probably not a guy that's going to hit a lot of home runs, but I like the mentality that is. Every time I touch the ball, I want to hit my head on the goalpost. I really like that for him. And they went and got a guy from my neck of the woods, my alma mater, Northern Michigan University. Not a lot of people know because I don't know if anybody's ever been drafted out of NMU. It's where Steve Mariucci's from. Uper, Jake Witt, came on as a tackle prospect late in the draft at a Central Michigan pro. They don't have a pro day for a Division II school like the NMU Wildcats where I'm from, but I am so happy to see somebody from where I'm from who doesn't produce NFL talent. This kid got drafted. It's very cool. Jake Witt, congratulations. I'm rooting for you. Uper, I hope you win the tackle starting position at some point for the Indianapolis Colts.
Yeah, and the Colts took my favorite wide receiver, Josh Downs.
Yes, they did. And a great fit. I think he's going to start for them in the slot.
So perfect. It's so perfect because they have guys outside that it's really tough to put smaller corners on one-on-one. So you got to use your big guys on the outside, your great corners on the outside, and then you got him in the slot. Like, what are you going to do? He's going to be going against a linebacker or a safety.
Yep, and I think he can win outside too. Joe?
Yeah, he can.
Well, I mentioned this before, and I think I'm still sticking with this team. I think this team had the best draft of all, and it's not the Philadelphia Eagles. It's the other team right across the way, the Pittsburgh Steelers. I give them an A plus, like of everything they did in the draft to get up in front of the Jets to pick up Jones, the offensive tackle, to protect Kenny Pickett and to help the running game is great. Then they stayed at the first pick in the second round, and they took Joey Porter Jr., bringing him home. And then the big defensive tackle, which really pissed me off, is when they took Benton. I was like, damn it. Like, I was hoping Benton would fall a little bit. Then they took your guys' favorite tight end, Darnell Washington. So you got to add that big guy. And then they took another linebacker, Nick Herberg. Everything that Pittsburgh did in this draft, I was just like, I love it. I love everything that they've done about it. So Pittsburgh Steelers, I know you guys had some holes, but this helped out. I think this draft helped you guys out a ton. And I always like you give playmakers to Mike Tomlin, he's going to win some games, right? So I like that one. Of course, we already know what Philadelphia did, so I'm not going to get into a lot about Philadelphia because they just straight killed the draft and did everything correctly. You guys already mentioned the Colts. I think another I hate to do this. I hate to tell you guys who had a good draft, but the Kansas City Chiefs had a great draft. If you guys are looking at them, they picked up more offensive linemen. They picked up more defensive guys that were great upside. So they had a great pick. You already know Andy Reid and Steve Spagnuolo can get the best out of some of these young guys. So I think Kansas City has to be praised for their draft of what they did. And you know what? I'm going to give a little bit of love to the Chicago Bears. Why not? I think the Chicago Bears scared us a little bit in the first round when they took Darnell Wright over Peter Skoronski and some of these other guys. But then you look at the rest of their draft, it went pretty damn well for them. And I think Ryan Poles did a good job of maximizing their picks and fixing the defense right there a little bit for them. So I like exactly what the Chicago Bears did. They went defense, they went offensive line, they helped out their team, and it's going to be exciting to see what they put together next year.
Yeah, the Bears added about 750 pounds of defensive tackle and like 2 players, which I think is great for the middle of that Eberflus defense. And I don't think that the Darnell Wright thing to me is like they clearly viewed Skoronski as guard only, right? Like, of my opinion, they wanted a guy they knew was going to play right tackle for them, and that was right. And that, to me, that's a good pick, because if that is what you're going for, they got Braxton Jones last year, 5th-year guy that played really well. Now you get the other tackle there. I think that they had a very solid draft. Like, I like what they did. And then they went and got the speedster from Cincinnati, Scott, and where it's like, I thought he was going to go ahead of the other guy that you guys drafted, Trey Tucker. And I think that's a steal, because now it's like Darnell Mooney, he could be gone after this year, or he's a tradable piece. Maybe at the deadline, somebody's looking to add speed on a team that's competing. And now they go ahead and pick up a, 3rd round pick for Darnell Mooney for a team that's like, hey, we're competing, but we need to add another wide receiver injury, or we need to add this element of speed, deep threat. And they'll have Tyler Scott to fill in on that next spot. So I thought the Bears were phenomenal. Mike, you want to jump in on anything on what Joe said before I go?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think Ryan Poles is doing a phenomenal job with what he's doing with the Bears right now. And they just got to keep rebuilding that roster while Justin Fields develops. And one of these years, maybe this year, maybe the year after, maybe 2025, he's going to break out and be an MVP candidate when that roster is loaded up. So just keep loading up the roster, keep adding young guys around Fields. And as we get closer and closer, to having to pay Justin Fields, they can make a decision on whether or not he has made that leap that they need him to make. So I'm excited to see what the Bears do. At least they're giving him a chance. We just seen in other places where teams draft young quarterbacks, and then they don't give them a chance for the first 3 years of their career, and it ruins them sometimes. So I don't want to see that happen to Justin Fields. Last year was eye-opening to me what this guy can do with the football in his hands. So I'm excited to see what the Bears are doing. And then the Steelers, I'm going to talk about the Steelers. So I'll just save that.
Awesome. Okay. These are my top 5 favorite drafts from this right here. Here we go. Honorable mention. I'm going to start off with the Cincinnati Bengals. Like, they added 2 wide receivers late in this draft that I thought were great, and added defensive help at the beginning of the draft. But number 5 is the Philadelphia Eagles. And a lot of people would say, oh, this is really low. I don't believe that at all. I think there's a lot of classes where people got impact starters ahead of them. So I got the Philadelphia Eagles at 5, adding Moro Ojomo. I thought he was going to go much sooner. He's another beast for them to start on the D-line. And they get Steen, a guard that's going to, I think, plug in there where they have a hole. Number 4, the Indianapolis Colts. The guys I like beyond, they get Darius Rush. For some reason, he fell into like the 4th or 5th round. Evan Hall, I already mentioned him. Adebaware, the defensive tackle, he fell. Another great pick. And my guy from the NMU Wildcats, Jake Witt. Number 3, the Seattle Seahawks. They got defensive line help. They got a D tackle, and they got Derek Hall, my favorite day 2 pick in this draft. They got interior line. They went and got a guard, and they got Oluwatimi, the center from Michigan, who I think is going to be good. They got Bradford, the guard from LSU, which is great. And then they go running back. A lot of people didn't like Charbonnet and McIntosh, but McIntosh reminds me of J.D. McKissick. Remember, they had 3 backs a few years ago, and when they're healthy, you could have 2 backs that are very similar and 1 back that can be a third down guy. Steelers at number 2. they just got value all the way through this. They absolutely crushed this draft. And my number one, and I know people aren't going to like it, but when you could potentially be looking at having the number one and number two pick of next year's draft, the Arizona Cardinals not only got for this draft, but they were able to go ahead for next year's draft. Whatever the GM, Austin Ford, I forgot the guy's name. The GM, his first year there was great, but they added guys that I think are good, solid players. Michael Winslow, the wide receiver from Stanford. They got John Gaines, guard, center, like real good flexibility right there. Paris Johnson Jr. And they had one more player on the list. Oh, the cornerback they got from Syracuse who had the ACL injury, but he cleared medical. Looks good, and I think he's a baller. Like, he's big and aggressive, makes plays on the ball. I love what the Cardinals did in this draft, and they got players, and they're going to have 2 really high picks in next year's draft. So that's my top 5.
I love it. And that's one thing the Cardinals did do really well, because they need players, and they need a lot of them in the next couple of drafts. They added some extra picks to next year's draft. You want to position yourself when you're rebuilding like the Cardinals are right now, especially when you already have the quarterback that you think you believe in, to pick up as many guys as you can, because it's going to be hard. And Tony has talked about this probably 10 times on this show. It's hard to convince free agents to go to a lackluster roster when they know heading into the season, every team's going to say they think they're going to win the Super Bowl every year, but sometimes. And the Cardinals have to know that these next couple years in that division are going to be a little tough.
I think Arizona is a great destination, right? At least it's not like it's tough to convince people to go to Green Bay. Like, Arizona is a place where I think people want to live. Taxes are a nice break there. But when you don't know the direction of the organization, head coach and GM and everything, I think the GM absolutely crushed this draft in his first one.
Yeah, I think he did too. The thing about the Cardinals, though, Tony, when you like, people are going to be like, "What? They had the best draft in your opinion?" In your opinion, yes, because you can't look at it like most people look at the draft of what's going to impact the team this year. If you're looking at the Arizona Cardinals, you have to look at long-term goal of what they're doing. They know that they're probably not going to compete this year. They know their starting quarterback's going to miss a lot of games this year because he's not healthy. So they drafted for the future. They're like you said, letting guys come back from injuries that have great talent. Yeah, they were hurt, but they're going to come back. They know that Paris Johnson is going to learn for the first year, but next year when Kyler Murray is 100% or whoever they have at quarterback, he's going to be ready to go year 2. So they made these picks with the future in mind, not just this year. And I think that's what makes this draft better in some people's eyes than just looking at it in 1 year as a 1 year thing.
And I keep an eye on this, guys, and everyone that's tuned in. They're in a spot where if the team is bad enough and they don't need quarterback next year, this could be the landing spot for Marvin Harrison Jr. So just keep an eye out for the Cardinals in that situation, trying to get a receiver for Kyler Murray. And with that extra pick, they could go and get the edge rusher, which would have been Will Anderson at that pick at 3.
Yeah, I think this is a really good spot because they're going to pick high next year, but then they're also going to have Kyler Murray coming back. Like, it's a situation where you have your franchise quarterback already in place. And that to me is like, you're getting guys that are going to come in and get NFL experience because they drafted a bunch of guys that I think will win starting roles on this team and have to fight through adversity, have to continue to be there. And maybe they might even get more picks if they decide to move on from like Budda Baker and DeAndre Hopkins and really commit to a full-on rebuild with the Cardinals. They could be adding even more draft capital where they could move up and next year do the same thing where it's like back-to-back draft classes where they're drafting just really nice talent and prospects all across the board. So it was, to me, I went in with a lot of questions for the team. And I left being like, oh, there's a real direction here. Like, I like it.
Tony, I wonder how willing, especially knowing that they're probably not going to be competing anytime soon anyways, I wonder how willing the Cardinals would be with either the D-Hop, probably not D-Hop. D-Hop probably just restructures and goes somewhere else, but especially the Budda Baker contract. I don't think Budda Baker wants to take a massive pay cut at this age and at that position in his career. Like, would the Cardinals be willing to send Budda somewhere where a team doesn't have to pay him as much, but overpays with the draft picks?
Well, I think Buddha said that he wants to be made the highest paid safety was the quote that I read. But I think that's more so just like, hey, if I'm going to be here, you're going to pay me as the highest paid safety. He might be willing to go to another team that is competing for a Super Bowl where he says, I don't really want that. But if I'm going to be on a team that's rebuilding, and that's where they are, they're rebuilding, but it's a weird rebuild because it's really only 1 year. Like, it's really only like, hey, we're going to miss our starting quarterback for the first 4 weeks, 8 weeks. And in my opinion, I said the same thing about Joe Burrow with the Bengals. I wouldn't have played him year 2. They played him, and they ended up going to the Super Bowl. Now, the Cardinals aren't going to do that, but there is an option where Kyler does progress, and he is out there early in the season, and they do win more games than we expect them to. Like, I think it's a different situation because Kyler's mobility is it is what makes him the next level, as to where Joe Burrow wasn't relying on that mobility. It was a lot more cerebral from the pocket, pick you apart. So coming back from a knee injury in year 2, they really just had to get Jamar Chase and get a couple offensive linemen out there, and things were already turned around. Let's switch to topic number 2, and that is going to be some teams in the NFL that left us with questions. We're not going to say bad drafts because we don't know. We don't know any of this. It's all projections. But name a couple of teams or positions or situations that left you going, huh?
Yeah, I got a couple.
Let Joe go first.
I got a couple, Mike. The first one I gave after day 2 of the NFL draft, I thought they were having a great draft. And then day 3 hit, and it's just like, what the hell did you just do? And that's the New England Patriots. I thought the Patriots were having a great draft, and then day 3 is like, I don't understand what they did in day number 3. I mean, you started off with Christian Gonzalez and Keon White, and even the guy from Sacramento State, Mapu, and I liked all 3 of those picks, and I was like, yeah, New England's back at it. And then Bill Belichick took back over the GM of Bill Belichick. Washington Commanders from the beginning had us scratching our heads when they took Forbes as one of the top cornerbacks, and then they just continued to have a weird kind of draft that I don't think they improved. And then I'm sorry to say it, guys, the other team that I think had a head scratching draft was your team, the Los Angeles Chargers. You took the wide receiver, I think the wrong kind of type of wide receiver for Justin Herbert. Your best pick was Tula in the second round. He has the most upside. I like him. I like your linebacker, but I just think it was a head-scratching draft throughout the whole thing. And then, of course, you guys already know the Max Duggan pick is like, why?
I love it, and I could explain it, but I won't. I'm saving it for nuts and bolts for why I love that pick. And I have a whole theory. I have painted roses all over my face from this draft class, Joe. And you can't.
Well, the Chargers, when you look at it, they what did you think the Chargers needed in this draft, Joe, that they didn't get?
They need somebody that wins. Somebody with some balls.
We had 10 wins last year. But anyways, I think that the Max Duggan pick was a little bit of a waste of a pick, but I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to identify a long-term backup because they know it's not Easton Stick. Just wish we didn't have to use draft picks on it, but at least they took a shot on the guy with a big arm. Got familiar receivers in the room now. We just drafted a bunch of TCU wide receivers also.
Yeah, do we really want to get into this now, or we'll save it?
No. We'll keep it going. It's just
okay.
I feel like the Chargers had a B or B minus draft. It was still solid.
Yes, I've come to the conclusion that this draft is a B, and I'm very happy with what happened. It took me a minute. I had to do some time, some research, what happened, why didn't they draft this guy, that guy, and now it makes more sense. Mike, any head scratching, curious what's going on? What are they going to do there?
Yeah, the biggest one for me is the Washington Commanders, and I only picked one team here on the list, so I'll save the rest of them for you, Tony. But I don't know what the Commanders' goals were going into this draft. Like, I agree. They needed a cornerback 1. But not saying that Emmanuel Forbes can't be a cornerback 1. He just seems more like an opportunistic cornerback 2. He seems more like, and I think we said it on draft night, he seems more like an Aqib Talib type player. And Talib was a lockdown corner. I'm not saying that he wasn't CB1 quality, but where he had most of his success was when the Denver no-fly zone was in existence, and there's just a bunch of DBs, and he can just go for the football on every single play. And I don't think that Emmanuel Forbes was the pick there for them. They need a true CB1 and Christian Gonzalez. And the biggest one for me that's confusing is Deonte Banks, because if you look at Forbes' game and Banks' game, they're very similar skill sets, but Banks is 6 foot tall and 200 pounds, and Forbes is obviously not. And then the second round, they went safety when they already have Derek Forrest there, who I thought was phenomenal last year. And I have a lot of faith in Cameron Curl. So they drafted a safety in the second round who's not going to play anytime soon because both those guys are really young, but they have needs at tight end and linebacker and O-line. And like I said, still cornerback. Even with using the first round pick on cornerback, they still need more cornerbacks. And they could use one more weapon if they actually are going to roll with Sam Howell. They left the draft, and I don't think they got too much better. Like, I don't think they filled any holes legitimately, and they're chasing right now. They're chasing Dallas, they're chasing New York, and they're chasing Philly. And maybe this is good news for Washington fans because I was suspicious of Seattle last year, but I'm suspicious of the Caleb Williams Washington Commanders, Eric Bieniemy, all this tricky stuff that teams be doing when they know they can get a quarterback the next year.
So I will push back a little bit on Washington's draft. If you think that Forbes is going to be the kind of sort of ball hawk turnover machine guy that might get burnt a little bit, he might give up the most yards. He might have sort of a Trayvon Diggs type season, but he's going to get the ball back for your defense a few times, right? Like, I'm not as low on Forbes as everybody else. Is it a little high? Yeah, I get it. But I still think he could hit. The second round, the safety, everything I read was like he's nickel with safety flex. Like, they're not even playing him out there. Like, they're bringing him down to the line of scrimmage, going to have him play the nickel, maybe some more box type stuff. I thought they got a starting center, right? Like, everything I read, which was like this guy can start at center, potentially in the future start at center. And then they had one other pick that I was like, it was the edge rusher from Clemson. If you can add another guy who's a speed rusher to that defensive line, I think that's a good pick, KJ Henry or whatever. So I get what you're saying. There's a lot of questions. I would have liked to see them add a tight end that has some juice, but I'm not nearly as low on them as everybody else is. And Mike, you're not the only one. I'm hearing a lot of people bash Washington's draft, and I'm like, I don't know. I saw some other places with bigger questions. Real quick, I just messed it up, but there was a tweet apparently from DeAndre Hopkins who said I wanted to leave Arizona, right? He's staying with the Arizona Cardinals. We were just talking about that. I think
stay and lose, DeAndre. Stay and lose. Nobody cares.
I think it's interesting. I messed up the exact quote, but
I need to get that TikTok up quick.
Yeah.
DeAndre, nobody cares. Like, if you want to stay in Arizona and you want to lose, DeAndre Hopkins, stay in Arizona and lose. Nobody cares. Like, it doesn't matter if you move on or not. Nobody cares. You're gonna lose in Arizona. Go lose in Arizona. You were favored by trading you.
I care a lot, and I want him to stay in Arizona because this guy was probably on his way to Kansas City. I care a lot. I'm happy he's staying in Arizona.
Yeah, I think it's great for us too that he's not going to the AFC West or anywhere in the AFC. I've heard the Bills, I've heard the Patriots, I've heard all these teams. It's like, I don't want him going anywhere in the AFC. So good, stay there in Arizona. In Arizona, like, really, I think they're in the market for, like, if one of these rookie quarterbacks shows they can be a solid backup for a team like the Saints, right? If Jake Haener, who I really like there for the Saints, shows, hey, I can be a solid backup to Derek Carr, maybe they go get Jameis Winston, the Cardinals do, and he starts, and they put together a 6-7 win, season. If Kyler Murray does not come back this year, because they still have Hollywood Brown, DeAndre Hopkins, and like I said, Michael Winslow, I think is going to play day one. He does have injury concerns. That was part of the reason he was in the third round.
There goes my Marvin Harrison. There goes my Marvin Harrison take.
Yeah, it does. But again, these are all just
bad. 10 minutes later.
wild thoughts, predictions, and projection. But I'm saying like they still need quarterback. We don't know who's going to be quarterback for them, but I could see them trading for a short-term starter from one of these teams that are like, hey, we're good with our guy, or we're going to move to a rookie, potentially Tennessee. Two teams that
this question real quick. Like it's weird that he's asking us a question with go back down, Mike. More. He has a Buccaneers logo, right? But he's asking us a question about a Jacksonville Jaguar pick. Maybe he's just from the state of Florida. I like this pick. I just want to see where they play Miller. If they're going to keep him at linebacker or move him to defensive end. He's a little bit smaller guy, so when he's engaged in a blocker and a big guy gets on him, it's going to be tough. But a pick for Jacksonville, I like that pick for Jacksonville. But like I said, in the run game, if a big blocker gets on him, you're going to have an issue with him.
We appreciate you for tuning in. Intellect Les, please subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Like the video. Thank you.
Yeah, honestly, I don't know. I didn't watch Ventrell Miller at all. I have heard people say that they like the pick and the upside and the creativity of Todd Bowles and what he could do. You know, like the way that they drafted, bringing in for him to be able to play aggressive defensively, and that's how the Bucs would like to sustain some football games.
Jacksonville drafted him. The guy that he's talking about. That's what I'm saying. I don't know why he's asking us about a Jacksonville pick, but I'm just saying he's probably from the Florida.
Then that is interesting because they have D-line. Their linebacker room is one of my favorites in the league. As long as Devin Lloyd and Muma figure it out, like I don't know why he would be playing at that level. So maybe he is. Maybe he's moving the D-line, adding some depth behind Josh Allen, Trayvon Walker. Okay, my questions from this draft. And I had many, but I went to two teams that I thought really were going to take the opportunity to address the offensive line. And the Rams took 2 out of like 13 picks. And I don't think the Raiders drafted an offensive lineman. Did they, Joe?
No, they didn't have to.
So, they didn't have to. No?
Well, no. A lot of people are talking going into the draft. I think if Paris Johnson Jr. would have been there, the Raiders would have taken him. But I think the Raiders are getting a lot of hate for their offensive line from last year, which is a little bit too much hate because they were the 11th best offensive line in the NFL coming in. Could they have needed some extra help? Yes. But I don't think they needed to address it as much as people are saying they need to.
Like it didn't ruin their draft is what you're saying.
The Raiders needed defense, right? And they committed the third most picks to defense in this NFL draft. So they went after what they needed.
Because I think that the offensive line and the importance for you guys like skyrockets when you put 10 back there. Because even behind maybe the best O-line in the league, this dude's hurt every year. If he gets hit 10 times,
we'll talk about it when we get to the undrafted spot. They addressed the offensive line, just not during the draft.
Okay. Yeah, I looked at the draft from the Raiders and I was like, I wouldn't admit this on camera or live in front of the millions of viewers, but I thought the Raiders had some really nice picks and some players that are going to play and make improvements for their team. But
you got to wonder, like we were talking about the Lions earlier. Same thing with the Raiders. I think players were falling, and you're just like, what the hell is this? Like and I think more teams went best available player in this draft, and I think that's what the Raiders did too. Than need like they've done in any other year that we've seen from teams.
But the Rams last year, like part of the issue for them was offensive line. Like they couldn't keep Stafford upright. They couldn't run the football. And then they take 2 line and they did get, I think the best guard center, Avila. Like that was a really great way for the Rams to start the draft. And I think overall they added some real good pieces to that defensive line, which was already a strength. But I left there thinking, what's going on? And it would have been easy. San Francisco didn't have a lot of picks or make picks or whatever. But a lot of people are burying that draft, which is a good segue to our next topic, which is our favorite reach. I don't know if you guys wrote down anybody for this, but my favorite reach of this draft is Michigan kicker Jake Moody. In the 3rd round, the Niners shocked the world and draft Jake Moody. I do think that it is underrated and very important to look at how the Ravens win some games, right? Like, look at what kicker can do for you. If you nail it, you are sometimes able to just get the ball inside the 40, and you need to have a guy that can come out there at the end of a half and just sink a 50-yard or 60-yard kick for you late in the game, knowing that the line you need to get to is really like the 40, so that you can have a kicker that's going to come out there and be pretty good from 50. I think that's important, and that can swing a few games for you. And I'm biased. I'm biased, obviously, but I really like Jake Moody, and I thought that was a good reach, a fun reach for them to have. People hate this pick so much. I saw somebody go, 49ers draft, you draft a kicker in the 3rd round, F. I don't even care who else you drafted. F, you draft a kicker in the 3rd round. I personally like Jake Moody. Good for the 49ers, and I hope he's clutch for them.
I think another kicker went like in the next round, didn't they?
The Patriots took a punter and a kicker in this draft.
So it wasn't the only one.
Yeah. Two guys, two GMs, coaches, whatever, that are like, hey, we're the smartest people to ever walk the planet. Like, they are very confident in who they are.
Well, the Rams came up with the phrase, but the 49ers live the phrase F them picks.
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't know what you were really talking about when you wanted to talk about this, Tony. So I was just thinking like somebody who probably ran around earlier or two than they should have.
Yeah.
But filled the need. And we've already talked about the Chicago Bears and their draft. But that defensive lineman, Zach Pickens, probably shouldn't have gone at number 64 overall. I believe it, round 3. I don't know where he was projected, but I think he was projected a little farther back. But just adding him, and I think he might even become a starter for them. So it is a reach, but it was like we're talking about. You got the player that you wanted, and if he becomes a starter for your team, doesn't matter where you draft him at. And
they drafted another guy, Joe. Like Pickens, you're talking about the guy who went to the Bears, right?
Yeah. So
they added another like 300-pound defensive. Like the 2 defensive tackles the Bears added, they're like a trip to the Golden Corral away from being 700 pounds. Like that is a beef factory they put there.
Got some fridges in the middle.
They're saying the Bears could walk away with 5 starters in this draft.
That's solid.
I think sometimes that speaks to your roster. That's kind of the issue that people have with me talking so highly of the Cardinals roster. Is like, you love this draft. Of course, they're going to get a lot of starters. They should. I don't believe that. I think that you can look at the player, the value, and where you, just like everybody else, we're all projecting these people out, with rose-colored glasses, best case scenario or whatever. What if Emmanuel Forbes is the best cornerback from this draft? And then all of a sudden people will be like, I'm just saying, we don't.
99.9% certain that there's no way he's going to be better than Devon Witherspoon.
Okay.
He has size concerns too, but they're not as bad. He's about 20 pounds heavier still with size concerns.
That might have been a bad example, but you get what I'm saying. Like, everybody's like, oh, we know these guys are better, but we don't know that Tyson Bagent, another Chicago Bears undrafted free agent selection, we don't know that guy's not going to like catch on with another team or something like that and just become a startable quarterback in this league.
Yeah, and there's a guy that was taken in the 7th round I'm going to talk about here in a little bit that has the actual potential to be one of the best corners in the draft. Also, the corners fell for some reason. A bunch of them did. But my favorite reach, and this is maybe a little bit of a cop-out because it was a first-round reach, but I felt like Will McDonald was going to go somewhere in the second half of the first round, maybe even early day 2. But Will McDonald to the Jets is probably my favorite reach. I think that he was an underrated player if he lands in a good spot for a team that needs him to chase quarterbacks down. And I think that's exactly what Robert Saleh is thinking with this pick. I got to chase Josh Allen down twice a year, so I'm going to get after him. We already forced him to throw a few interceptions into this superhuman secondary last year. So what's he going to do when he's got, Jermaine Johnson and Carl Lawson and John Franklin Myers and all these guys that are really athletic edge rushers now with Will McDonald joining the room, getting after him? Josh Allen's going to have even less time to throw, and less time to throw for quarterbacks usually leads to more mistakes. And that's the only way we've seen the Bills really struggle is when Josh Allen makes mistakes or they're playing a team like the Bengals or Chiefs that are just able to outshoot them. So I think that this is a great pick for the Jets because they were in a spot where they need a tackle really bad, and they still kind of do. But they saw all these tackles go, and they didn't force the pick there. They went ahead and got someone that makes a little bit more sense for the scheme than just forcing a tackle pick because you saw the tackles going right before you.
Well, a lot of people are hating on the Jets for this pick, from what I've been seeing and reading.
Yeah, I have to.
We talked about it when the Jets were on the clock, Tony, and you, when we were all together and we were talking about it. We said the Jets probably wanted to trade out of the spot. They were probably looking to trade out of the spot, but they were going to force and pick somebody who's probably going to be a little bit of a reach, but somebody that fit their system. And then when they took Will McDonald, we were like, "Yep, there it is." And I think it's a great fit for that team. And I don't know why people are knocking it, but I do really like that fit right there. So adding him with Jermaine Johnson from last year, you already got Carl Lawson there. I think it's a great rotation, and we've been seeing what defenses are doing. The new NFL is now switch your rotate your defensive line, and just adding another guy to that defense is good for the New York Jets.
Yeah, and the biggest thing with the pick, and it's for Jets fans, is probably why they're excited about it. I haven't seen any Jets fans complaining too much. Is you just want to speed quarterbacks up when you have a really good secondary, and all of these edge rushers are fast, man. I'm excited for the Jets pass rush because I think that they're gonna end up pushing Sauce Gardner towards Defensive Player of the Year talks.
Yeah, well, he said when he was on the podcast, New Heights, he's like, I'm setting my sights on MVP of the league. He's like, then maybe worst case scenario is I fall into Defensive Player of the Year. And I was like, good for you. Like, go talk that shit.
Yeah.
Win MVP. You guys know how much I would love to see a non-quarterback win MVP. I don't care as long as that player isn't from the Broncos, Chiefs, or the Raiders. As long as that defensive MVP is not from one of those teams, I'm all for it.
I need someone in the chat to help me. Did Night Train Lane win an MVP? Because I don't think a DB has ever even been in consideration to win an MVP award.
Yeah, you stop it. Deion Sanders would have been the closest to when he was like basically,
returning, receiving, playing DB, all that stuff. Yeah, it's the only way it's possible.
Yeah, and then at some point you would have just said, well, he was targeted 13 times this year. It's like it does have a lot of value when you can only throw to the opposite side of the field. I want to say one thing about Will McDonald on the Jets. When the defense was already that good, and you can go in and you can add a guy that you're going to say on third down, and he already said, hey, we're not playing you in that 4-eye, 5 technique like you were playing at Iowa State. We're putting you out there. We're putting you wide 9. We're going to let you go hunt quarterbacks. He is fast. If he can add another, 7 to 10 pounds, which I think that he can. I think he can hold it and maintain that speed and that ability to just sort of just dip under the tackle on the outside. I think he could end up with potentially 8 sacks rookie season. And that is a lot. Like Quinn Williams in the middle. Oh man, it would be that the Jets defense is really good and really interesting with him on it. And I like the pick, and I get it. They need tackle, but they don't need tackle. What they need is health. They need Mekhi Becton to be healthy. They need Dwayne Brown to be. We just saw Andrew Whitworth play till he was 40, and he was solid. They need that. And then if not, Max Mitchell, if a guy gets hurt, you got to be able to swing between left and right, which I think he can do. Got a year of NFL experience. Elijah Vera Tucker can kick out to tackle. I don't hate it.
The Jets almost made the playoffs last year without a quarterback. So this team now with Aaron Rodgers, if Aaron Rodgers is just decent, they should make playoffs. They should.
Yeah, I believe so. I'm not going to predict that because I'm rooting against it, but way to go, Jets.
We got 2 topics to get to.
Yes, we do.
Tacktown Raider, I'll get to those. I'll address you in a minute.
Okay,
I know a lot of Raider fans are upset about Tyree Wilson for some stupid reason. You couldn't take, like I said before the draft, the Raiders could not draft Jalen Carter. They couldn't do it. There's no way they could do it. No matter how great Jalen Carter turns out to be, the Raiders couldn't do it with the past history of their draft, and the PR would be a PR nightmare in Las Vegas if Jalen Carter went there. Tyree Wilson, people are saying, who's a reach? He was a top 5 prospect in this draft, and we took him at number 7. So calm down, Raider fans. It's a great pick taking Tyree Wilson, and better than what we've done in the past. But there's no way that we could have took Jalen Carter and been okay with this.
Yeah.
I hope it don't work out. I'm not going to say nice things about the Raiders.
I have thoughts on the Tyree Wilson pick, but I'll share them off air with Joe. And I already have shared some of them. Let's go ahead and move now to our next topic here, which is or maybe we already did this. I was going to say like our sort of favorite late round steals of the draft, and we'll try and do this one a little bit quicker. Mike, you want to lead this one off?
Yeah, pretty much the Steelers' entire draft. I mean, JPJ, Keanu Benton, Darnell Washington were all steals to me. But the biggest one, and this one left me as head scratching. I didn't watch the 7th round of the draft. I was working on stuff in my place. I checked it out afterwards. When I saw that they got Corey Trice in the 7th round, I was baffled because, for one, the only issues with him is he has some medical concerns. And I think that teams are afraid that he's not going to be able to play zone coverage. But this is one of the only corners in this draft that can come up and press the biggest wide receivers in the NFL and run with them down the field. This guy is a man-to-man corner, and even if he's just used as a man-to-man corner, he is an absolute steal in the 7th round.
So, Mike, I did look into that one real quick because I was upset that the Chargers kept passing on him and Darius Rush, and apparently the medical concerns are real. But in the 7th round, you take that risk. Yeah. Because I was also like, he felt like the Patriots. He felt like somebody that Belichick would draft and just say like, all right, if we can get him on the field opposite of Christian Gonzalez, like we're just gonna press everybody, and I am going to let my guys get after the quarterback. Like we're just gonna go and be aggressive.
That's what confused me, Tony, is with him falling all the way to the 7th. Because even like I said, if you just bring him in to play man coverage because you're worried about his space issues and worried about him backpedaling and turning and running if he has some injury issues. Teams pay cornerbacks $8-10 million just to come play man coverage. It's crazy. It's crazy. You think that they would take a 5th or a 6th round shot on him at least? I would have drafted him in the 3rd and been happy.
I got one that you guys might like. This is like you were saying, like maybe like a sleeper pick or something late in the rounds that I'm looking at. And this is a tight end that we thought was a big draft, but this guy had a bad senior year, had a great junior year, but he transferred. He's from Old Dominion, and his name is Zach Krantz, and he went to the New York Jets. You're putting him with Aaron Rodgers. Guys, he's 6'8". He's 6'8" tight end going over there. If you look at some of the stuff that he's done, he's 6'8", but he ran a 4.5 40 at tight end. His vertical jump is off the board, and they're saying that his next gen stat, the athleticism score or whatever, if you go, I don't know how much you go off of that, but it's a 94 out of 100, which would be 7th overall of all time of any NFL tight end coming into the draft. So, and he went 7th round, number 220th overall.
He's the best testing tight end in combine history. Right? Like numbers wise.
Yeah.
Where it's like, it's crazy. I don't think he'll play a lot with Aaron Rodgers, maybe on a few like, hey, we're going to put this guy out here for a little fade corner jump ball situation. I think that they're going to be using Conklin and Uzama and veterans that Favre is going to, Favre. I did it. I already had my first Freudian slip that Rodgers is going to,
But for a 7th round pick, it's somebody interesting for me to watch and keep up with. He had 73 catches, Tony, his sophomore season or whatever, the year before last. I don't say it's his sophomore season because he played, 4 or 5 years in college, so it would be his junior year. They consider his sophomore, but yeah, he played. He had 73 catches that year.
Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
No, it's not. It's a joke. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say he struggled because he was without Stone Smart, breakout tight end this year for who? The Los Angeles Chargers. That's going to happen. Yep, that's going to happen.
Let's just skip to where Aaron Rodgers is a Viking. Let's just skip the year, get him there, make it happen.
I don't want to skip the year. I am so excited about football season. My steal, I'm going to go 2 of them. I'm going to go Antonio Johnson in the 5th round of the Jaguars. We kept talking about them. We kept mocking Brian Branch to them. You need to get this guy with safety, nickel, versatility. Antonio Johnson, I believe, will be that guy. Texas A&M safety. And then the Saints, they got A.T. Perry, 6'4", fast, wins 50-50 balls. They got him in the 6th round of this draft. I kept wondering to myself, like, why is A.T. Perry still on the board? Like, this is a guy he runs crazy fast. He's 6'4". It's not like he's small. It's not like he's 6'4", 170 pounds. Like, he's 6'4", 195 or something like that. Why isn't he out there? Why? People question motor or effort or whatever. I don't know. I think it's worth a 6th round pick in the draft. And with the injuries that they had last year, I think it makes for an interesting one. I also had Jonathan Gaines, but I already talked about him. Did you guys, for our final topic of the show here, did you guys write down anything about undrafted free agents, favorite ones?
Yeah, I did. Oh, go ahead, Joe.
Before we move on, I just want to beat up Tony because he's funny because he brings up Antonio Johnson right there. And that's one of the guys I was like, I hope he falls to the Raiders. He goes, the Raiders, he's not good. He's too good to go to the Raiders. Like,
yeah.
Now he's like, oh, this is one of my favorite sleepers in the draft to Jacksonville. But it's funny. But yeah, we were talking throughout the whole draft process. I think we kept bringing his name up a little bit more. So it's great to see that he went to a good fit.
I thought he was definitely going to be early day 3, and he ended up going like towards the middle or end of the 5th round, and I was like, this is a good player who can tackle, and teams need him, and that's what the Jaguars needed, was that getting somebody in that spot, and they got it.
Yeah, these slides are crazy sometimes, and us as fans are left scratching our heads. I just wish that we were like flies on the walls for these meetings that they have with these guys, because I'm pretty sure a lot of them fall probably because of, medical, obviously, but sometimes teams probably just don't like the guy when they meet him.
Yeah, I think there's off the field concerns, there's chemistry, locker room fits, all of that stuff. And I think one thing I took away from this draft, and what is going to be part of my Chargers love this, is that they are starting to realize that if you invest in rookies, why not bring players that they are familiar with, create camaraderie? All of these younger players, they're all rich. They're all getting paid a ton of money, your 1st round picks. So let's make them happy and comfortable and feel in an environment where success is going to be there. They're not going to be homesick. Like, you're getting guys that are, I feel like, 1st round picks. Like, what could you do to make them be even more successful? And like, if they have come from a good program with other good players you don't have to reach on, it's investments in your 1st round pick. And we see that with what the Eagles are doing at Georgia. There's no reason for them to get homesick. There's no reason for like some of these teams where they're doubling up on players from, where they drafted a guy early 1st round. Let's bring him in. Let's make this a place where they're like, they know a guy. They have a familiar face. They're in a new city, a new territory, away from family. Like, they need that.
Max dug into Quentin Johnston in the preseason is going to be electric.
Let's try to wrap this up, and we'll go undrafted free agents. You guys want me to start first, or you guys want to go first?
Go ahead, Joe. You get us started here. Favorite undrafted free agents from the 2023 draft class.
Tacktown Raider brought it up, and I was going to bring it up. There's a couple guys that I like the Raiders. They're not my favorite, but some of them are really good. The Raiders have given out the biggest undrafted free agent signing, I guess, the most money to one of them, and that was the offensive tackle Dalton Wagner out of Arkansas. And they took another big offensive tackle in Curtis McClendon out of Chattanooga. And then, of course, I like another guy I told you guys out of Boise State. He's a defensive end, George Charles. I think he would have probably got drafted if he didn't have the hip surgery in October, but he's already back to running and stuff. So those are 3 guys I like from the Raiders draft class, and I think they're pretty good. But the biggest, I think, best undrafted free agent signing, and I hate to say this because I hate this team, Tony, I really do, is the Dallas Cowboys. They went out there and got another wide receiver, and then from Fresno State, they got Jalen Moreno Cropper, or however you say his name. But you got the wide receiver who went for 1,000 yards last year with Jake Haener, and you're bringing him in here, and he could do a lot of stuff for that offense. I think that's a good fit for the Dallas Cowboys. But I'm just looking at, like, really, Dallas Cowboys got another guy, and not only did I think the Dallas had a great 1st round pick, but a pretty good draft. Then they go out there and get him after the draft.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah. I'm still digging into the undrafted free agents myself, so maybe there's gonna be some more guys that I realize in the next couple of days. But a guy that stood out to me when I was looking at the list of all the undrafted signed players so far was a Cincinnati linebacker, Ivan Pace Jr. I saw him listed on a few top 150 and top 200 prospect lists, and I had not my eyes on him. I just was like, maybe this is a guy the Chargers would look at later in the draft. And they did draft a linebacker in the middle of the draft. I guess size concerns is the reason that he didn't end up getting drafted, because he is only 5'10". But when you go and watch his tape, all of his highlights are him bullying some offensive lineman or knocking a running back out in the hole. I will say I didn't see anything in pass coverage on him, so that's just a huge question mark. But I just felt like teams like to take discounts at depth, especially at linebacker, but some teams just flat out need linebackers, and they just don't have a great linebacker core. The Vikings are one of them, and that's the team that ended up signing him. I just thought maybe at the end of the draft, teams looking to add depth to their linebacker room, this guy is a fun player, and he's going to help out in run defense, I think.
Yeah, Mike, check that camera, reset that. I will agree. I think I heard somebody else give a quick little shout out to him as that he could make it on special teams, right? Like make it on the roster on special teams, and then work your way to depth and injuries and opportunities present themselves.
When I watched it the first time, I remember thinking like that he was going to be a special teams guy also. But then when I watched it today and the other day when we were getting ready to talk about the draft, he's got a lot of qualities that led to Jamin Davis getting drafted really high a few years ago. Mm-hmm. So I don't understand what happened, why he didn't get drafted.
Yeah, I don't know if I referenced that pick because it didn't pan out so well.
No, that's what I'm saying. But I'm just saying, like, I was just shocked. Like, if they're taking a shot on another small linebacker, like, he has a very similar skill set.
Yeah, it's interesting. Okay, my guy didn't get drafted. I thought for sure he was going to. 6'4", 208 pounds, runs a 4.3, 740. Matt Landers is making the Seahawks roster. He is making the Seahawks roster. They're going to need... And when Lockett goes out, they're going to need another deep guy that they can throw the ball to. And like, he's not going to be a superstar, whatever. You've got DK Metcalf and you drafted JSN. But at some point, Matt Landers is going to hit for the Seahawks. I love it. I hate it, and I love it at the same time. Malik Cunningham going to the Patriots. I just love it for the controversy, for the conversation. Like, Bill Belichick is still putting out there like, well, Mac Jones has to earn back his starting quarterback job with Bailey Zappi. They bring in Malik Cunningham. And apparently there was some bidding for Cunningham. And Belichick was like, no, you're coming here. So that makes it even more interesting. I love that even more. Keaton Mitchell to the Ravens. He's smaller, but he's got juice. And if you can get that guy next to, at some point, maybe not early on, but at some point into the offense, like he can really, really fly with the ball. That's fun. Vikings, another shout out here. Andre Carter, the guy from Army, edge rusher. He needs to put on weight. He's probably not going to play this season, or at least not that position. Maybe he gets on the field on special teams. But I just like the background. From Army, like, you got to have work ethic. You got to know what it's like to just be working super hard. And if you can just focus on moves and putting on weight, and Brian Flores is there, you're getting some all good things in that one.
I was waiting to see if anybody brought up Andre Carter, because I sent you guys the list 2 days ago of next year's projected first round pick, and I go, how much do you think this will change? Andre Carter went from being like a last year early in the draft, early in the season before the season started, as being a top round pick to being undrafted. And it's funny that you say about his size, Tony, because one of the you know how they always have anonymous people come out and say stuff. There was a quote about him that said, Andre Carter, in about 3 years, you won't recognize who he is once he gets into an NFL workout regime and stuff like that his body's going to get real bigger and he's just going to be this big, thick dude. And so he has a lot to grow into. But I think Brian Flores, if he can get his hands on him, he's got a good guy.
Yeah, he's good work ethic, and he just needs time to make this his job and focus on it. And when you're part of the armed forces, like, you just don't get to train for combines and put on weight and have specific meal plans and all this other stuff. But in 2024, 2025, like we'll be going, oh, this guy's ready for a breakout. Like I just think he'll get it. And if you can even just get him on the field in preseason stuff, right? Just to let him have some NFL action this year, just let him see what it feels like out there. He's gonna be a player for them. The last one I want to go to, and I almost veered away from it, and the reason that I did was because I'm about to butcher this name. The Falcons signed an edge rusher, Akena Inchukwu. He was from Brett Coleman's the video that you sent me, Mike, as somebody that was like, look at this guy, maybe potentially priority undrafted free agent, but he thought he had a shot to get drafted. When he goes through the tape on this guy and he's sitting there and breaking it down, it's like, oh, this is worth just having on your roster as a draft pick. He doesn't get drafted. He goes to the Falcons. Again, I butchered the name. I'm so sorry, Akena, but if you could just dominate, then I will learn. Not like I don't want to. I just haven't heard it. So I can't pronounce it properly if I've never heard it. I'm trying. But I'm excited for him.
We all learn Antetokounmpo. So if you have a crazy last name, we'll learn your name if you're a beast. Don't worry.
Well, I think I just need to hear the pronunciation, or some names just need to be spelled out in pronunciation.
And Bill Belichick, there goes Tony. Bill Belichick is the only coach / GM in the league with the balls and the job security to play an undrafted rookie over a 15th overall pick a few years ago. Let's wrap this up, Joe, and get out of here since the stream is crashing, so we might as well just end it. That was our last topic, anyways.
So overall, everybody loves the draft. There's no, we're not hating on any drafts. Like you said, you got to let these draft picks go out. There's just some that you love more and didn't have you scratching your head. But at the end of the day, we'll see who had the best draft pick in the next couple of years. Tony's out of here. Mike, if you guys are listening to us on the audio version, please come on over to YouTube and have subscribe over there. But what a great show, great draft, and love of draft weekend every time.
Yeah, please like the video, everybody, and comment some of your guys' favorite steals in the draft. Comment some of your guys' favorite reaches of the draft in a good way, not in a bad way. Or if there's any favorite undrafted free agents you guys like, which team had the best draft, you guys could comment that. Any opinions you have, we'd love to hear them in the comment section. Also, we will soon be tallying the points for the winner of the mock draft competition. Been a busy weekend for us, so we'll get to that soon. That's it.
For Tony Tucker, Mike, and myself, we're out of here, guys. See you guys next time.